And apart from being very grateful to Derek for what he did for actually putting this club together and giving us our very first site over on the North Beach, Derek also compiled some 7 volumes of photographic history of Greystones, and anybody who has any of those, they're absolutely fantastic books, and if you have 7, they're worth a great deal of money. Add the 8th to it and you're actually in some serious twine. So Derek sadly passed away a number of years ago, having completed 7 of these, and his son Gary has continued that and added the 8th volume of photographic history of Greystones. It's absolutely fantastic. I was lucky enough to get one earlier on and look at it. There's one particular photograph in there which is extraordinary. It's long before there was an Applewood or Redford or any other house in the state of Greystones, just a huge open fields all around this town. So I'm going to hand you over to Jago, who I think is going to introduce Gary and some of the background to this book. So thanks very much.
Good afternoon. And I want to say you're all very welcome, which of course you are. As I wanted to explain also the connection between our family and the Paines. As I was born in 1937, Billy, my oldest brother, born 4 years before that. By the time I was born, as my parents rented a house from a man called Sam Evans in Black Lion, it was called Novara, just diagonally across the road from Black Lion House. The house was named Novara after Sam Evans's original house, which was one of the ones that was washed out on the north shore there, just north of Yarra Yarra. Our mother, because my father was away in England all during the war, our mother sublet the bungalow we rented every summer for about 3 months, and we rented from Mrs. George Archer, number 2 in the Bawn, for about 15 years. And the Paines grew up the other side of the wall in Glencoe. And we met, of course, the common ground was the beach and the harbour. So that's how we know the Paines. There's more to it than that. There's a photograph in the book, and it was reproduced earlier, of my brother Liam here, together with the football team, photographed in what we called the bog field at the time, or the circus field, also owned by Mrs. George Archer, just the other side of the railway arch, and behind the house behind the bungalow where Joe Sweeney now lives. So Billy and Derek has played on that same football team. As our brother John was passed away some years ago. His daughter is just here beside me. And John and Stanley Paine were brilliant at spearing place. Stanley had the advantage on John in that he could borrow a glass-bottomed box that could take the surface ripple out of the equation. And there was one occasion, as I recall, where before breakfast one morning he had speared something like 26 fine place, just about where the marina is now. As I grew up coming behind them, I was always tagging on behind, but I was about of an age with Joan Paine. Basically, I would remember from when we were very small. In the first of Derek Paine's books, he reproduced a postcard that was taken either from the top of the old slip, which was somewhere about under all this concrete here, or from the rocky bank below it. Some youngsters had been playing on the beach. The photograph shows as mothers as with children, small children, and a couple of girls had pushed up little sandcastle, little walls, just pushing the sand together like that between your hands as to make a garden. And then using their buckets and spades, they made at about 12 or so sandcastles in it. And I think that's what caught the photographer's eye. I was on the beach that day, so high. I've always remembered it all my life. It's like a dream to me that Mrs. Paine and Joan Paine were on the beach also, but I might be mistaken in that. But I'm not mistaken in a later occasion where we were on the same beach in the harbour, tried a little further out, and at that stage Joan Paine had contracted polio, and she was wearing calipers and leg irons on one leg, and Mrs. Paine came with others. It may have been Derek, it may have been Stanley, or it might have been their cousin Doreen Thompson, and they helped Joan out of the leg irons and took her down into the sea. It was a brilliant move. Within 2 years, Joan Paine could swim like a fish, and the leg irons were done away with. So they're the connections we have. We've memories that go back that far. There are other things we could talk about, but I think all I can say is that both Billy and I contributed as much as we could by way of encouragement to Gary in this magnificent book that he has put together. As he gave me a copy of it yesterday when I contacted him. I had driven down from County Donegal, or had my son drive me down, because I had a hip replacement about 4 months ago. And I attempted to read through the book, and I think it will take me about 4 months, I think, to get through all of it. I think my brother Billy would like to say a few words just before we introduce Gary, as whom you all know very well.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I was born in 1933, so and I was William Hayden, or Billy as I grew up in Greystones, and my wife has always called me Liam. I was in the Gaelic League, and we had a branch here in Greystones. But just to talk about Derek and add to the connections. I got married in 1955, and my family, through economic circumstances, our grandfather was more than 50 years in the shop that was now Mooney's, and he was John Mackenzie, born in Liverpool. But my sister, who was younger sister Eileen, who was reared in England, wrote home to me and asked me her daughter wanted a family tree, and I knew nothing about family tree. But anyway, before all of this became fashionable, I started to look into the history, and I was always interested in history and local history, and I got hooked on family history about 40 years ago, and I worked abroad a lot, and I spent a lot of time around Ireland and in the UK and further afield, but wherever I got the chance I was into this. And I heard that Derek Paine was having a presentation, and Derek, whom I knew because we grew up in Greystones, and I can tell you, just to tell you, that Greystones was 2,500 people in the winter time then, and it was 5,000 people in the summertime. And the harbour area, which Derek loved, was the vibrant part of the thing. We had acquired a boat, a 12-foot clinker boat from Mrs. Tucker, whose husband had died. It was built in Scotland at the beginning of the 1940s. And at the age of 11, I and my brother John, we made our first long line, and we shot it out the harbour. I wasn't supposed to go out of the harbour, but we caught a number of plaice. And from then on, every summer, every hour that we could do, we fished from here down to Kilcool and all around the area in this boat all summer long. At the same time, Derek, the Paines had a yacht, and they were in the harbour. But I had played football with Derek, as Jago mentioned, on the under-18 team. and we knew them so well. But Greystones in the summertime, the harbour area was a vibrant part of the town of Greystones. Everybody came to it. Everybody mixed, all classes of people. They came down, and in the summertime, and it was known as Little Belfast, because here up on the rocks in the summer day, you would have so many people from the north, and in Carrigeedon, and they would have a religious service and all of that. But we had everybody from the postman, from the Burnaby, from everything, and we had clubs, the swimming club, the rowing club, and everything. It was really a vibrant part for the whole community. It was the heart of the community in the summertime. And the peak was in 1953, when the toast of the Spring Festival was held. There were 22 clubs in Greystones at the time. Everybody from the Burnaby, colonels, retired colonels, the lot took part in the Grand Hotel and organised a Spring Festival. We had tramp supper along here. We had charity football matches. We brought a torch from Dublin out to Greystones in relays. It was 1953. The rowing club run everything along the east coast except one race that they were finished second, and they were really done out of it. But anyway, we grew up together with Derek, and we spent our time together, and we knew each other so well. But then I got into this genealogy. I heard Derek was having an exhibition in the Railway Hotel of photographs. And I went to that, and I remember meeting Sean McGee and his sons at the time, whom I knew so well. And I asked, Derek was persuaded then to put them into a book, and he produced number 1. And even though I was working abroad and maybe living abroad at times, I always used to contact Derek to ask him when he was going to do another book. And luckily, every year I got advance notice, and I managed to get a copy of every book, which I treasure. Now, I was looking through this last night, and I was worried. I knew Derek was planning to do book number 8 when he sadly passed on. But I was thrilled when I heard that Gary was taking over the job of finishing the book. Now, he's worked so hard, and I saw this book last night. I'm extremely impressed by it, extremely. And in fact, I think if you submitted it as part of an application for a PhD, you have no...
Go on, do it.
With a name like mine, I'm not going to be a doctor.
Anyway, I want to say I'm so impressed. All of the others are, as the Commodore mentioned, are valuable things nowadays. You won't get them from anybody. They won't sell them. And I hope everybody here, new people have come into the town, new residents. You're buying history, which goes back, and everything from the coal business, the fishing business, and all of the things that made Greystones. And I hope you all buy a copy of it, because when you're my age, and Derek and I were contemporaries, we're only a dwindling band nowadays. There's not too many of us left. But I hope that you will be able to say, look, there's to your children and grandchildren, there's the town where you grew up. Because when you get to our age, you're looking back at the thing like the salmon, looking for the river. So please, please, tell your friends, but buy copies of this work. It's a fantastic, fantastic thing. So that's all I have to say.